JSB Talks Digital.
Hello and welcome to JSB Talks Digital, the podcast for marketers, digital transformation champions, and those of you bringing your skills into the digital age. I'm Joanne Sweeney-Burke and this podcast is brought to you by Digital Training Institute. In this episode, number 113, I'm going big on social media community management. Why the juniors always get blamed for social media mess-up, but why, in my opinion, that's a cop-out. In social media news, Google algorithm update, Snapchat posts a loss in the last quarter and falling user numbers, and Facebook rolls out a redesign for Pages. I interview two-time author and crisis communications and digital marketing expert Lee Carraher from San Francisco. In shoutouts, 3 social media community management rules. Ask JSB, in JSB's column, Don't Blame the Junior, what we can learn from the Fianna Fáil fail on Twitter, and find out what social media tool saved my working week.
Social media news.
The latest Google algorithm update has been described by the search engine giant as a broad core algorithm update and one that it does several times per year. But the folks at Search Engine Land have been doing their own research and complementing what other SEO experts are saying, this update has seemingly hit what Google describes as your money, your life websites. Suggesting there's nothing drastic that we need to do, Google says, as with any update, some sites may note drops or gains. There's nothing wrong with pages that may now perform less well. Instead, it's those changes to our systems that are benefiting pages that were previously under-rewarded. Unfortunately, the graph is only going one way for Snapchat. Its recently quarterly results didn't make for inspiring reading, with its daily user numbers falling for the first time and profits also falling. The decline comes after a controversial redesign which sparked outrage among committed users. Snapchat has 188 million daily active users, compared to Instagram's 400 million, despite coming to market 5 years later. Instagram has also recently added a section for longer videos called IGTV, which rivals Snapchat Stories. Facebook has redesigned the pages of more than 80 million businesses to make it easier for people to interact with local businesses and find what they need most. The updated pages make recommendations about businesses, including text, photos, and tags, which are now more prominent. Facebook is also rolling out enhanced features to show menus, book appointments, and other actions, expanding events and job application features, and rolling out stories to all pages. In a blog post, Facebook says, "These improvements are a small part of our commitment to help businesses connect with customers. We'll continue to work on new ways to make these connections easier and more valuable and to help all businesses grow."
Interview.
In this episode, I interview Lee Carraher, the founder and CEO of Double Forte PR and Digital Marketing, a 15-year-old national agency located in San Francisco. The author of Millennials and Management, the Essential Guide to Making It Work at Work, Lee based the book on her experience with epically failing and then succeeding at retaining millennials in her business. Her second book, The Boomerang Principle, Inspiring Lifetime Loyalty from Employees, was published in 2017. It's a pragmatic and actionable guide to creating high-performing work cultures ready for the future. In this interview, we discuss how to handle a social media crisis, the role of strong leadership in developing online strategies, and why there is no place for juniors in controlling social media accounts.
JSB Talks Digital.
Lee Carraher, you are so welcome to JSB Talks Digital, and you're coming the whole way from San Francisco, I believe.
Yes, I am. Thank you, Joanne. I'm so happy to be with you.
Give us a little bit of a backstory into your career, because it's quite extensive.
Yeah, because that means I'm old. Yes. I have been in the public relations and communication business since I graduated from college very many years ago. And I've had the same career, same purpose for my whole career, but very many different kinds of jobs. And I've seen the business change so dramatically, particularly in the last 10 years. Ultimately, I had lots of awesome agency jobs at very high profile agencies. And then I went in-house at Sega, the video game company, and actually managed the Sega of Europe for a while in the communication space. And then after that, went to Interpublic. And after that, I started my own firm, Double Forte, in 2002, in the downturn of then. And I've that was before Twitter. So, and now we have evolved to become a public relations and social media marketing firm to really reflect what the reality is of how people communicate today.
And, our backgrounds are not dissimilar. Suffice to say, you have much more experience than me. But, social media and the world of the internet, it's simply just another communications vehicle, right?
Absolutely.
And so when we're thinking about social media, sometimes we have senior leadership or company directors or CEOs who have this impression that it's a tool where we have young people in the driving seat.
Which, it's such a false equivalency, right? Just because people use it doesn't mean they're experts. And experts in communication. And the worst that you can possibly do to someone who is not skilled in the art of communication, but knows how to run a Twitter account, is to put them in charge of a company or a brand's communication vehicles that happen to be in the social realm. You are doing them a disservice, you are doing your company a disservice, and it will fail. I've never seen it not fail at some moment in time.
Do you get the call when it fails?
Well, yes. Usually it's, I didn't pay attention to you, Lee. And I do my best to say I told you so, right? Some junior, some person right out of college can do it. And they know how to run their own Twitter accounts, their own Instagram accounts, their own Facebook, their own Pinterest, their own Snapchats. But running a company is very different than just posting, right? It's just a very different exercise, and it's very strategic. And if you really need somebody, I'm all in favor of having junior people be paired with more senior people in the execution, but to leave them alone is doing them a disservice, and you will rue the day. You'll absolutely rue the day that you did that.
So if you were advising your clients, or indeed even for your own agency, and putting a social media manager in place, what skills or expertise would you expect them to have that level of confidence?
Yeah. So I would expect them to have skills around communication. Are they good writers? Can they tell a good visual story? Do they understand the business of the business? What is the business goal versus what is the social media implementation of that goal? And often, in public relations, you can be so busy and get nowhere. And the same is true for social media. It's just a much faster path to nowhere. And so understanding what are the key messages, how to reinforce them, what kind of language to use, what to do when something goes wrong, because something will, having some expertise and at least experience in dealing with trolls, those kinds of things. And people who are confident enough to say, I need help. Because often you might be like just being wallowed in a Twitter storm, and you have to raise your hand and say, I need some help here. And often junior people will not do that because they aren't confident in saying, I need help, because they haven't had that experience coming out of university.
We know this, right? You got to have that instinct when you need to escalate something, when you see a conversation or a comment. And that only comes with experience, right?
I think that only comes with experience. having a fast trigger figure is a good thing too, you know? So I actually like to have I never like to have one person be in charge of social media, because one, that means that has to, you know, they have to be awake 24/7 basically. But if you can pair a more senior person with a junior person, so that person can learn from and learn while doing, you're going to have a much stronger presence and a much more able team to maneuver when you have to.
That's really nice advice. I like that one. I haven't heard that one before, so I'm going to take that one on board. Let's talk about the rise of social and live video. So, you know,
Yeah.
in the old days, which are not so old, when we were preparing people for TV interviews, you know, there was a lot of prep. People are now just like putting their smartphone in front of their face, turning the camera to themselves and pressing record and streaming live. How much preparation would you do with your clients, or what's the process that you would follow?
For a company, a brand, a celebrity, a star, you know, some people who have high profiles, I would do nothing live without preparation. Nothing. I mean, if you just think about journalism, right? Journalists who are on television, they are skilled. They have years of training on this, the people who are good at it, right? They know what to say. They know how to maneuver. They know to look how to camera angles. And like, what is the purpose of the live video? Just to have a live video? That's not a purpose. What are you trying to deliver? What is the appropriate backdrop? What is the appropriate tone you need to take? What is your purpose, and how does it all fit in together? So without preparation, you can actually hurt yourself more than you can help yourself. Just because it's a good medium doesn't mean you should use it unless you're skilled at it. Practice, practice, practice.
Yes, absolutely. Fail to prepare to fail, right?
Oh my goodness. I guess the thing about live video, you can turn it off, but that sends a terrible message, right? So, we work a lot in the video game space, and there are lots of streamers and Twitchers and YouTubers who just sort of document their lives in video games. Well, and they're getting doxxed and they're getting swatted all the time. Well, this is no way to live, right? And how are you going to recover from that later in life? I do not know. I do not know how you're going to actually, get to keep moving it along.
And that's a whole new industry, right? That's a brand new industry. So
it's brand new.
Being able to serve that industry and that younger audience base who's grown up with the smartphone from the day they were born, but giving them that really good communications, marketing, and PR experience, do you find that they really rely on you for that?
Oh, yeah. Well, they should. Not everybody. Basically, people rely on us after they've gotten burned, right? It's usually I can handle this, and then their following grows, and you hit a tipping point in your following when it crosses over from just fans to a general mainstream audience. And when you hit a mainstream audience that is not just fans, well, it's a whole new ballgame where most people are not prepared. They're not prepared to deal with what has happened. And you could there's a long litany of celebrities who have been taken down by social media because they were not prepared from their fans to the mainstream. So I recommend everybody sort of, before they start, is to say, what's the trajectory here, and have a good person you can talk to. They don't have to work for you all the time, but find somebody to say, okay, what should I be expecting here? What do I want to do? And if I want to achieve this, how do I get it done? Because you might be a great actor, but it doesn't mean you're a great social media strategist.
Now, your President Trump, claims maybe to have coined the phrase fake news, but he's not wrong, because it is a big issue online wherever it's coming from. And this is the other skill that a social media or a community moderator requires, is that ability to identify fake news, but also to step in and to correct the public record. Because and I know in the world of PR and journalism, correcting the public record is so important. And I find that I work a lot with politicians and public sector, that they tend to step back and do nothing.
Yeah, which you used to be, that's what you used to do in the media, right? If you replied in the old school, if you replied to a magazine article, which had been in, a glossy magazine article had been in the works for months, right? If you replied to it, you created the story again, right? And so you increased dramatically the footprint of that story, because it had to be, if it had to be corrected, the organization had to restate it and correct it. So you just extended the bad story. In social media, if you don't correct inaccuracies and untruths right away, don't worry about the news cycle, increasing the news cycle. Worry about shutting down the bad news, news cycle. Which is a different frame of mind from if you've been in my career and your career for a long time. That was a definite shift from don't respond because it'll kill the news to absolutely respond. And you have to, is everything, you have to set a bar, like what's egregious. And I think the egregious line goes further and further down, meaning more things are egregious faster in the environment that our president has created. Because fans and, fans and, fake accounts can amplify untruths so much faster today than they ever could have in the traditional media.
So we've seen the continued diversification of Facebook. We've seen the remarkable growth of Instagram, and Stories has now overtaken Snapchat. Twitter has kind of plateaued and has its own issues. Where do you think social is going, or what's hot right now for you in terms of the states and the clients that you're working with?
Depending on the client's category and their goal, first thing is to match up the goal with the platform. If you have, if the goal is to reach a certain audience on a certain topic, go where the audience and the topic is. You don't have to execute against everything. All those platforms to be effective at it, because all those platforms are different. If you execute the same way in Instagram that you do on Facebook, you will fail at one or the other. And it's most important to be natively expert to each of the platforms, and then to match your strategy to where the audience is you're trying to reach, right? So I would say if you are trying to be a thought leader, if you're a startup working in trying to gain some ground among journalists, if you're not on Twitter, you're not going to get their attention. If you are trying to reach women who have, older women, I'm a boomer, so I'm the last year of boomer, they are on Facebook and they're on Pinterest. They're not really on Instagram as much. It's a younger crowd. And like in the DIY, if you're doing a do-it-yourself thing, if you're not on Pinterest, you don't matter. So understanding which platform is used for different industries and different topics and different phases is the first thing. And then mastering that platform before you add another one is where we help our clients just focus, because focus is your friend. You're always behind in social media. I mean, no one's ever ahead of it. Even if they've planned it out, 15 posts into the future, no one's ever ahead. So it's more important to master one at a time than it is to be everywhere all the time. Do less of better than more of crap.
Now, I mentioned in my introduction to you that you are a 2-time author. I'm really interested in your book on millennials and management, the essential guide to making it work at work. You have mastered something which I believe evades a lot of organizations, and it's something that really kind of bugs them in terms of their marketing and comms strategy, and that's that ability to hone in, get the attention of millennials, and then retain it. What was your experience in terms of in business and hiring them and then writing a book about it?
So the reason I wrote a book was because I so epically failed at retaining millennials in my business. I mean, epic failure. In fact, we hired 6 millennials within, 4 or 5 weeks of each other, and they were all gone in 3 months. And that's 100% failure. I'd never had 100% failure in my career. And I thought, I was like, wow. And so I went and I'm like, I didn't know what millennial was. I went and researched young people at work, and this word millennial came up. I'm like, oh, okay, there's millennial. Everything was so negative, Joanne. Oh my gosh, everything was negative. This is back in 2012, I guess. And I had decided that before this, we didn't have millennials in my business. We made that business change after 2009, blah, blah, blah. And I decided to ignore everything that was negative, because 80 million people in the United States are millennials. And hello, if you don't have a millennial in your business, you don't have a future in your business. So I can't be negative about the future, was my thought process. So I did my own interviews. I did a lot of seminal reading, like go back to the basics. And we did a lot of trial and error at my company to figure out how we could recruit them. We couldn't keep them. And then over time, we figured out what we needed to do to keep them. And then in my communication, because in my firm, we do a lot of internal communications as well as external communications, public, media relations and social media. And then over time, my clients were asking me for this help over and over again. And then someone said, oh, you should write a book. I'm like, who wants to listen to me? And then I would happen to be meeting with a publisher for something totally different. And she said, I will publish that book about, and I'm like, what book? I don't have a book. She said, yeah, book about millennials you have. I'm like, I have a handbook. I don't really have a book. And that was really how I got into it. And really, I'm on a mission. I'm on a mission to help people understand that work does not have to be a continual conflict among the ages, and that we are all going to be working so much longer than our predecessors and our parents did, that if we don't figure out how to work with people who are, in different phases of their lives, we are in for a world of hurt.
What is your impression of how communications is going to continue to evolve, let's say over the next 2 to 3 years, because we can't really predict further than that?
We can't. Oh my goodness. Well, I think that the efforts, a lot of the efforts that are happening now with the News Literacy Project in this country, with education around the world on what is true and what is not, and how to understand sources, and what is the veracity of those sources, will continue, and that'll be a good thing for everybody. Number one. Number two, I think it's going to continue to be really multi-channel, where public relations used to be really one channel before. It is so it's so diverse and layered today that the role of the communicator is actually more important today than it was even 10 years ago. And we see that all over the place with our clients who are now hiring chief communications officers in companies where that person would have reported to a marketing lead before. So the requirement to become good communicators has never been more important. And those people who can figure out the nuance of how to be authentic, how to be engaged and not dictatorial in their messaging will win. And the age of just buying space and telling people what to think is over, because everyone is a media channel today. Everyone has their own media properties, and it's a negotiation. And when you are in negotiation with people, relationship with people, is when we can have better communication, better understanding, and frankly, more positive business and more authentic business that does good in the world.
Lee, it's been an absolute pleasure having this conversation with you. I've been just a hobby horse listening to you. So thank you. Thank you so much for your time. And I'm going to continue to, I guess, have online conversations with you and follow you. But where can my listeners follow you online to get so many more knowledge bombs that you've been dropping on the interview?
The best place to go is my website, www.leecaraher.com, LeeCaraher.com. You can find my agency, Double Forte, there. You can find my books, and you can follow me on Twitter at Lee Caraher. I blog from LeeCaraher.com, and my Instagram is Lee Caraher. I'm really easy to find, Lee Caraher.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining me on JSB Talks Digital, and we will continue this conversation online.
I so enjoyed it, Joanne. Thank you so much.
Shoutouts.
In this part of the show, I give shoutouts to brands, organisations or individuals whose work online is remarkable and worth talking about. In this episode, I'm sharing 3 social media community management rules that every social media manager should follow.
1.
Some people might think I'm daft suggesting that anybody managing social media accounts and a community should be skilled in public relations. Aren't they two different disciplines after all? Well, how many case studies have you read where a social media crisis has happened because a junior has been at the helm? I truly believe that community management should be left to those who understand reputation and good practice around dealing with the public. So in my view, a community manager, when hiring them, should have skills in PR or media.
2.
So many times I've watched Twitter or Instagram threads and I've seen them go down the Swanee, and I'm asking myself, where is the leadership and where is the manager? One of the secrets to great social media community management is knowing when to escalate a tweet or a post. Somebody who has great PR or media skills will have that instinct to escalate a conversation to a manager. Leave the wrong post in the wrong hands and you could have a crisis on your hands.
3.
My third piece of advice is something that I take from the world of political communications. If you have a social media community manager who's managing conversations on a daily basis about a broad range of topics, then I think you should give them what we call in politics lines to take. So these are agreed positions or angles on controversial or trending or topical issues. You give your social media community manager a couple of paragraphs on a particular issue, and then they'll know how to debate it or discuss it when online.
Ask JSB.
In this week's Ask JSB, Michael wants to know the traits of a good community manager. Hey Michael, and thank you so much for your question. It's really interesting that you ask about the attributes and the personality traits of a good community manager, because apart from having really good PR and social media savvy skills, it does actually go down to the personality of the person. So here's a few that I would recommend. They should have what I call an expansive personality, somebody who can converse with lots of different people online, because once you step onto the online ether, you're likely to interact with anyone. Secondly, I think that they should have an interest in the opinions of other people. They simply shouldn't just be reflecting or mirroring the opinions of the organisation that they're working for. They should be using social media as a sounding board. So being a good listener is really, really important, and taking those opinions back to the social media and the communications management team. Thirdly, I would say that they have to have a friendly attitude. Somebody who really loves spending time with thousands of people online. If their attitude is sour, well, nobody will want to engage with them. So they have to have a positive disposition. And Michael, I actually wrote a full blog post on this very topic. So if you hop over to digitaltraining.ie and click on blog, you will find it as blog number 4. If you have a digital marketing or social media question, don't forget you can have it answered on the show. Simply use the hashtag AskJSB on Twitter or Instagram and I'll pick up your question. You can also leave me a voicemail with your question at digitaltraininginstitute.ie/AskJSB.
JSB's column.
In today's JSB's column, I'm talking about the Irish political party Fianna Fáil's recent social media fail. A tweet from the official Twitter account criticised the HSE's harm reduction guidelines on cocaine use. The HSE is Ireland's National Health Service. Responding to a media comment, a party spokesperson said, "A junior member of staff posted a tweet this morning from the party Twitter account, and the tweet did not represent party policy." He also said Fianna Fáil is in favour of the harm reduction guidelines released by the HSE as part of their Do You Use Cocaine campaign. The offending tweet said, "Let me get this straight. There are 1 million people, yes, that's 1 million folks, on the health sector waiting lists, and the HSE are running campaigns like this. Perhaps HSE Ireland, #YouAreOnCrack." The tweet, along with a follow-up tweet posted by the same junior member of the staff, tried to deflect from the original one, stating, "We're not saying it's wrong. It's the formulaic, pure look of the campaign. How much thought did the HSE put into this campaign?" The problem that I have with Fianna Fáil and blaming the junior member of staff is that would you actually have a junior member of staff to manage your PR communications? Is somebody who's junior given the ropes to your communications bus or train over a senior member of staff? I admit it was holiday time, perhaps they were short-staffed, but I don't think it's a good enough defence. And in fact, the more and more Twitter fails that I see, the more and more people I see using that excuse. Social media needs to be viewed not as third-class communications. This is often the mistake that senior managers make because of their own personal biases towards social media. They don't see a value in it until things go wrong. Oftentimes I wonder if juniors get blamed in the face of adversity because it's a really good excuse that nobody can come back in. But I'm standing up and I am challenging that right now. I am challenging organisations who put juniors on their social media teams. And also I'd like to ask, do these organisations really have a community management strategy? Do they know what they're doing? Do they have protocols and policies? In my view, on a daily basis, your community manager should be engaging and responding to public comments on social networks where relevant. They should know the party or the organisation line and have lines to take. They should have a direct dial, a mobile and a WhatsApp access to a senior communications manager where they can get responsive and timely answers to queries from citizens online. They should be responding to private comments on social networks as well as public. They should be moderating live social events such as Twitter chats, Facebook Lives or live event reporting. Ultimately, they should be building visibility, credibility and trust of that organisation or that public figure by being responsive and transparent. Along with that, they need to be strategizing with their social media team on ways to scale their community and connect with new people. They should be analysing efforts to drive more traffic to their website, and they should be creating online relationships with other stakeholders and influencers. On a monthly basis, they should be feeding data into the social media manager for the monthly report, and then on a weekly basis, feeding data into the communications line manager. So, all in all, do you think this role is made for a junior? I absolutely don't. If you want to discuss your community management strategy, then get in touch. Simply drop me an email to joanne@digitaltraining.ie, and of course, I'd be happy to help you out.
Social media tool of the week.
The social media tool that saved my working week this week is T-Chat. T-Chat makes it much simpler and easier to keep up with a Twitter chat because it updates in real time and much faster than Twitter. Before you start chatting, however, you'll need to sign into your Twitter account. Not only does T-Chat update faster than a normal Twitter feed, but it also allows you to pause your feed if things get too crazy. Pausing the stream will allow you to catch up with discussions if you fall behind. And once you've caught up, click play to resume the stream. Give it a go. Find out more at tchat.io. Thank you so much for tuning into episode number 113 of JSB Talks Digital. As always, I have everything discussed on today's show on my award-winning blog over at digitaltraining.ie. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do. You'll find us on Google Podcasts, Spotify, iTunes, and also Libsyn, Stitcher, and SoundCloud. And if you're a regular listener, I would love a review. Thanks as always for listening, but of course don't forget you can get in touch between now and the next show. I love hearing from my listeners on social media. You'll find me on Twitter at Tweets by JSB, on Instagram as JSB Grams, and on Snapchat as JSB Snaps. I'm Joanne Sweeney Burke. This is JSB Talks Digital. Thanks for listening, and I'll talk to you soon.
JSB Talks Digital.